Good afternoon and good evening. Welcome back to our Gabelli School London Speaker Series, Business Perspectives from Europe, which we're hosting every Thursday from now through April 29th from 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I'm Dr. Megan Drury Grogan, Associate Professor of Communication in the Gabelli School of Business at Fordham. I research and teach courses in professional and strategic communication, as well as project management. And at Fordham London, I grow and maintain our strategic relationships and programming for our students and alumni. I developed this Gabelli School London Speaker Series with Dean Donna Rapaccioli and Andrea Manillo, the chair of our London Advisory Board, to provide our students and alumni the opportunity to interact with our partners in both industry and at universities throughout the UK and EU. This provides them a unique global experience and the chance to network with international thought leaders, which is so vitally important right now, particularly in this age of COVID when we can't be interacting in person. I'd like to thank our guest speakers from various universities and organizations with whom we've grown strategic relationships. We are most grateful for their continued contributions throughout this series. And I'd like to welcome all of you here today, our guests and members of our Fordham community joining us for our sixth session in the speaker series that's bringing together these thought leaders from across Europe for over the next month and a half. For students, those of you who attend 4 sessions will be receiving a certificate of participation in this global series, which you can note on your resumes. We'll be announcing these achievements as they occur throughout our series, and today, it gives me great pleasure to recognize our next 5 recipients, Derege Bekele, John Lally, Alexis Peso, Rita Barco, and James Moda. I encourage all of our attendees now today to participate in the conversations that we'll be hearing. You can do this in 2 ways. The first is to type in our Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll include your questions in our Q&A discussion later on in our program. The second is to reflect on something worth sharing from our session today and share it on social media using the hashtag Gabelli Connected handle and also tagging at Fordham GSB so that we can follow and learn from your insights. And you'll see both of these handles now in the chat box for you. Today, our 6th session in the speaker series, we have a very exciting discussion planned about habits with impact that will help us optimize our performance both at work and in life. We have with us Sinead Bradbury, who's a performance nutritionist and founder of Sinead Bradbury Nutrition and Health Consulting. Joining Sinead will be Greg Minson, the COO for real estate in the merchant banking division of Goldman Sachs. Greg is also our vice chair of the Fordham University London Advisory Board, and he's going to be providing a response to Sinead's talk and relating its importance to a fast-paced, high-stress work environment. And finally, we have 2 graduate student leaders who are going to be hosting the Q&A discussion with both Sinead and Greg. Liz Stack from our full-time MBA class of 21, and Emmy McCrink from our MS in Media Management class of 21 as well. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce Sinead Bradbury, who I'm proud to say I know both personally and professionally, as I've worked with Sinead on some of her nutrition-related research from a communication perspective. In addition to founding her own company, Sinead has founded the Nutrition and Health Clinic in Ireland in 2008 and also co-founded Body and Kind, a women's health community company that focuses on self-care, fitness, and food. She's also recently completed her master's degree in applied sport and exercise nutrition. Sinead has worked with a number of elite athletes and teams and with some of Ireland's leading personalities. She's a regular contributor to Irish media on radio and news and to Sport Ireland, the governing body in Ireland for all elite sports. Through her engaging approach, Sinead has taught me how to see myself as a high performer, as it's not just elite athletes who are high performers. And Greg's going to talk with Sinead about that very notion today. The importance of health and well-being, including your attitude to yourself and prioritizing health and wellness in order to achieve great things while you're working in your personal life or in your sporting or exercise life. So I'm very excited to have you here with us today, Sinead, and thank you for joining us. And without further ado, I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Megan, for that lovely introduction. I am absolutely thrilled to be here and speaking to you all at this very exciting time in your career, but also quite a stressful, maybe challenging time as well in the times that we're in. So today I want to share with you what I have seen as hugely important in terms of striving for what you want and being well enabled to achieve what it is you want to achieve in life. I'm going to share my screen here now, and I'm going to talk for about 20-30 minutes. And please, guys, after that, ask me any question that you have in relation to your own health, your well-being, your working life, your student life. There's no such thing as a silly question. I'm open to hearing and answering whatever you have, and use this as an opportunity to enjoy and be curious about health and well-being. So here are my slides. And when I started off first, guys, 15 years ago after graduating, I thought it was all about food. I thought it was about eat this and you'll be fine, and don't eat that and everything will be, no problem. Until I started working with real lives and realized that there was an awful lot to people setting themselves up to eat correctly and eat and crave the right types of food. And that's when I understood the importance of the precursors, is what I call it, to eating well, the lifestyle factors that really have impact. And it's really an attitude of self-care and setting yourself up an organization. And if there was one thing I'd hope from this session, is that you would maybe identify one or two key areas that will have impact in your own wellness to improve energy, performance, and really to get a better understanding of where you're at and what you need to do to improve. One of the big areas that from meeting people and all different levels of wellness, is that sometimes they don't understand what they're striving for. They don't understand what it is to feel really good. Sometimes people are striving for perfection, trying to get 10 out of 10. And I often talk on a scale of 0 to 10 when I'm trying to identify where a client is at when they come to me initially. Are they 3 out of 10, we'll say, really depleted, suffering a lot? Are they maybe 6 out of 10 and they just want small incremental improvements to enhance their overall wellness? So here's what you should be striving for, guys, when it comes to wellness. And I think 8 out of 10 would be a fantastic achievement. And it's really maintaining it consistently, I suppose. And it's habits that the healthiest people I know, they have worked on themselves, and habits don't just happen overnight. They are support and mechanisms and tools to help you to achieve what it is you wish to do. And habits, they're in line with the food you're buying, how you're storing your food, how you're cooking your food, habits in terms of movement and exercise, hydration. So it's not a hit and miss approach. It's not like, oh, Monday, Tuesday, I'll eat well, Thursday, Friday, I don't eat well, weekend, all out crazy. And I know you're at a very different stage in life to me right now, but really, I wish I had known this when I was your age and when I was just graduating, because it would have helped me, not so much even my physical well-being, but my mental well-being. Energy as well, guys, is really important when it comes to a radar for health. Again, I believe you're high performance individuals and you may not even know it. I mean, to be at this stage and to be at this academic level, it's fantastic achievement. And often we just do what we always do. We have high expectations of ourselves. And sometimes energy, in order to achieve what it is you want to do, whether it's an exam or a presentation, you will push yourself, or a deadline, you will push yourself, and you might keep going with caffeine or sugar or whatever it is, and lose touch with your energy. But believe me, if you're in depletion mode and if you're pushing yourself too hard for too long, that has a really negative consequence on your system. So really, you think you're moving forward, but if you're not looking after your own energy and being in touch with energy management, it really is going to mean that you're going to take 2 steps back. So really, health and wellness and being a high level is all about knowing where your energy is at, and looking after yourself to ensure that you're boosting your energy as opposed to depleting yourself. And it's not just food when it comes to energy depletion, it can be people and situations. So we really have to guard our energy if you want to have the energy to do what it is you love to do. Mood, again, we're in COVID challenging times. Of course, we're not all as happy and, I suppose, maybe always motivated as we would like. But if your moods are really all over the place all of the time, that's a big sign that your body is giving you that, the things are out of balance. Same with sleep. If you're feeling good and you have a high level of wellness, you wake up feeling refreshed. If you're waking up feeling depleted, that again is a sign that perhaps there's an imbalance there. Cravings. If you're craving sugar or salt or, feeling that you're in a zone of cravings all the time, again, that's a sign to your body that there's an imbalance. Same with the symptoms. Okay, nobody is symptom free. I don't know anybody who's symptom free, But these are all signs that your body are giving you. And I often see people come to me, Sinead, they want to lose weight. Then when we start delving into how things are going with them, they're suffering from migraines, headaches, hormonal upset, sleep concerns, high levels of stress, anxiety, but yet they're coming to me for weight loss. So you have to tune into yourself, guys. And it's really important at your age and stage of life you're at to do this and to practice it. And not also to strive for perfection. Again, if you're a high performance individual, I've seen in my practice here in Ireland, sometimes the high performance, they want to have perfect health then when they start embarking on it. But it's not about 10 out of 10 approach. Really trying to get to a high level, but not striving for perfection. It's always progress over perfection. And then you can't always stay at that same place. I mean, you're never going to, even if you get to a high level 8, again, life stress, whether it's happy stress or really sad stress, you will dip a little bit. But again, if your habits are in place, you will recognize that and you will intervene in order to boost yourself again. So it's an ongoing dialogue with yourself, an ongoing self-awareness. But believe me, the more you tune into this, the more energy and vigor you will have for your day. So step 1, and again, I thought it was started with food, but no matter what your goals are, fitness goals, performance goals, well-being goals, start with sleep. Okay, and if you did nothing else after this presentation but concentrate on your sleep, I would be delighted. Maybe even have a sleep challenge for a couple of weeks to see and monitor how your sleep is. But here's why I put sleep first. It is so impacting on your immune system. If we're getting less than 6 hours sleep on an ongoing basis, it contributes to chronic low-grade inflammation in our system. Now, if this inflammation stays in our system for too long, that's what leads to disease. And I don't want this to be a presentation all about the bad side of things. I want to promote wellness and the benefits. But honestly, if you're getting less than 6 hours sleep on an ongoing basis, it is detrimental to your immune system and to your overall well-being. The importance of sleep for brain function, for motivation, for well-being, hugely important. Mental health has never been more important than right now. Good sleep will contribute to feelings of wellness. Muscle recovery, again, as Megan pointed out, I work with elite sports people, and sleep is hugely important. If you're training at a really high level for any length of time, you need to be focusing on about 9 hours sleep and to make sure that your body is recovering optimally. Another area of sleep that people aren't really over familiar with is the hormonal impact. So there's 2 really important hormones when it comes to wellness and in terms of appetite and craving the right types of food. Ghrelin and leptin. Now, if you're not getting good sleep, ghrelin is overproduced. And ghrelin makes it really difficult for you to be satisfied from your food. So an awful lot of research into obesity is going into the sleep side of things, because too much ghrelin, people are overeating, find it hard to control their appetite. So again, if you're in that craving zone, really think about your sleep and ways to optimize it. So when you're thinking about getting good sleep, it's not just starting about a half an hour or an hour before your desired bedtime to think about sleep. Sleep starts from the minute you get up in the morning. If you want quality sleep, your practice starts the first thing you get up. And what's hugely important, and when I've been talking again over the last couple of months in these challenging times, what I'm hearing from, even in the corporate world, is the inability to get outside sometimes and get sunlight and fresh air. Now, I have number 1 there, morning sunshine exposure, as being really important, because the sunlight, guys, hits the retina in our eye to signal to the brain to produce melatonin 10 hours later in order to help us wind down and sleep. It's called the circadian rhythm. And the more in the world of being connected and online and attached to computers and devices all the time, the more disconnected we get to our circadian rhythm. And then we lose touch, and our body lose touch about when we should wind down naturally, when we should wake up naturally. So it's really important to remind our body where we are in the day. Get outside, get sunshine, even for 30 minutes every day would be really, really important. Of course, we know the benefits of being physically active. And again, what I think is important when it comes to getting good sleep and in wellness as a whole is how you start your day and how you end your day. I call it the bookends to your day. So how you start the day can really set you up to have a positive day, but equally how you wind down. So just respecting the fact that you have to signal to your body that the day is over. Get off the screens, finish with your work and try and get a bit of consistency in there. And then again, when I see my high performance clients, sometimes you can stress over inconsistencies. You know, people are monitoring their sleep now constantly and nearly freaking themselves out because they're not getting, you know, deep sleep. You know, put those devices away, just relax, get outside, get movement, and really look, you know, have your body in your position that it's going to crave good quality sleep. In terms of diet, do not tax your digestive system too close to bedtime. Okay, 3 hours before, you really don't want to have any kind of a large meal within 3 hours before your desired bedtime. Randomly, kiwi fruits have been shown to help with promoting good sleep. Tryptophan-rich foods, it's an amino acid found in certain proteins like milk and turkey and chicken, again, helps to boost serotonin to help to induce sleep. Watch that you're not overhydrating too close to bedtime. Unfortunately, caffeine actually can really negatively impact. And believe me, again, I'm amazed at how sensitive some people are to caffeine and not identifying the intake of caffeine to the quality of their sleep. So really, I often say after lunch, really have a close look at the caffeine intake you're having if you have problems with your sleep. Cherries, really good, again, proven to help. Unfortunately for some, the nightcap has been shown to negatively influence their sleep. So it might make you sleepy, but what happens is you'll have a blood sugar level dip and you'll wake up from that sugar level dip if you're having too much alcohol close to bedtime. A small carbohydrate-rich meal could be nice, a little bit of oatmeal, a little bit of honey, and then just watch again. Don't tax, where possible, your digestive system too close to bedtime with high-fat foods. Here are some supportive nighttime snacks that you can have if you feel peckish close, you know, to bed, or, you know, two hours before bedtime. Something like apple and almond butter. We have some protein there. We have some Greek yogurt with berries, rice cakes and peanut butter, or kiwis and a handful of nuts and seeds. These will help to promote sleep and have a knock-on effect of, I suppose, gaining energy. And a very simple formula that works, that I try out all the time, and that's very easy to remember, is to think about 10, 3, 2, 1. So 10 hours before your desired bedtime, think about no caffeine, really after lunch if you can help it. 3 hours, no large meals. 2 hours before your desired bedtime, switch off, work, leave it till tomorrow, you're done, no more emails. And 1 hour, no screens. And it's so challenging sometimes to do that, to get rid of the screens. But believe me, the power is in the doing, so not the knowing, and it does work. So if you're craving good sleep for all the health benefits, really try and think of this formula. It's an easy one, and it has been shown in my practice to really, really work. And before I move on from sleep, I just want to mention to you the whole idea of, again, not just looking at your sleep about a half an hour before bedtime, but thinking about breaking up your day, you know, and disconnecting. You know, often I find some clients, they want to get rid of the habit of eating the wrong types of food late at night. Maybe they're eating sweet things and they don't really want to, and they want to break the habit, but they find it really difficult, or they're drinking too much, or staying up too late on the internet, or whatever it is. But often it's because people haven't connected with themselves at all during the day. Like, they're not decompressing. So by the time, say, 10 p.m. comes, they're absolutely fatigued and overwhelmed. And that's when they kind of emotionally eat, or eat too much of the wrong foods. So if you can break up your day, and again, we're all online and all working remotely, we really have to be proactive with this, because it's not happening, because our day isn't really set up for this. So we have to intervene and try and give ourselves what we need, whether it's breath work, fresh air, again, the sunlight I was talking about, petting your dog, your cat, hydration, nourishment. These will all have a great impact on your memory, your concentration, your focus, but also your sleep. And what we're doing here, guys, and what I want you to understand is, when we do that, we're moving from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight, being on, performing, deadlines, emails, traffic, fight or flight. Cortisol is being produced in the body, and that's stress. So if we're in that state all the way through the day, and, you know, all the way through our lives, it's going to have seriously detrimental impact on ourselves and our well-being. So what we have to do is actively switch from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system. Rest and digest, healing, relaxation. And again, the power is with yourself, the power is in the doing, and really is, even 2 to 3 times a day, if you can do that in your working day, it would be hugely beneficial. So step 2, I just want to talk about nutrition. Okay, so getting good sleep, a little bit more energy, And the key area here, guys, right now is mental well-being. And I want you to understand the importance of gut health for your immune system and for your mental well-being. Okay, I want to talk about that just briefly. And I also want to mention the power of balancing your blood sugars throughout the day to have an even keel and an even flow of energy and to avoid mood swings. So why am I talking about gut health? Well, mainly because 80% of our serotonin, which is our feel-good hormone, is produced in our gut. And if we're too stressed or too tired or overworked or not eating well, our gut health is negatively affected. And that has a knock-on effect on our digestion, our skin, our weight, and our energy levels. And our gut health is linked to our immune function. Now, what we're talking about here today is performance and well-being, looking after yourself. And if you're not focusing on your immune system, you're really looking at raising the propensity to get infections, colds, flus, inflammation in your system, which is again long-term is going to lead to disease, autoimmune conditions, but just in general, it will be out of action. And what you don't want as a high-performance individual or as an athlete is to be out of action, because if you're out of action, I suppose you're not where the action is, and that's where you want to be. So we have to protect ourselves. So again, too much sugar, too much stress, too much alcohol is going to really deplete our immune system. So we need to be strong in this fast-paced competitive world that you're in, about to embark in as well. So the more you look after yourself, the more of a competitive edge you will have. So it's really in your interest in so many different ways. Balancing blood sugars. Sometimes people want to say, do I need to eat more of this? Do I need to eat more of that? But I want you to understand that balancing your blood sugar levels throughout the day is really, really important. So if you wake up in the morning and you have a sugary cereal, let's say, boom, up goes your blood sugar levels, and that's good. You're awake, you're alert. But what happens is about an hour and a half later, your blood sugar levels plummet. And that's when you're going to maybe be challenged with your mood. You might send a ratty email. You mightn't have the patience that you normally would. And you're also going to crave more sugar to get yourself back up again. So you're in that vicious cycle of up and down, energy depletion. And I suppose long term, you're looking at type 2 diabetes. But just as a whole, you are going to be more challenged in your working day or your study or your career. So think about, I'll talk about in the next slide, but watch where you are sometimes. If you're moody, you're cranky, you're upset, or if you have something to figure out, maybe you're actually having a low blood sugar and it mightn't be as upsetting as it could be. So maybe it's even just nourishing food could help with that. So we can all get a bit catastrophic or think things are more upsetting than they are if we're having a low blood sugar. Honestly, it's once you get on an even keel, life is easier, believe me. And my drive in all this isn't to be a certain size or whatever. It's to be well. I have my own business, as Megan said. I have 3 children. I have hobbies. So I want to be well in all aspects of my life. And low blood sugar levels and up and down isn't a place that would help me do that in a calm manner. So foods to support these areas. So when I'm talking about gut health, I'm talking about probiotic rich foods like yogurt. I don't know if you know kefir. This is something that's really taken off here in Ireland and Europe. It's like a fermented yogurt. Even just adding that to a smoothie, half a cup would be really helpful. Sourdough is another example. This is Eastern European cabbage. Okay, it doesn't taste the best, but even adding a little bit to a top of the salad or whatever would really help to feed the good bacteria in our gut, because it's all about the good bacteria more than the bad bacteria. And these type of foods help to nourish that. So with that strengthening in our gut, we're helping to become more resilient and help our immune system. Sourdough, again, in Ireland, lockdown 1, we're calling it. We're in lockdown 3 now. In lockdown 1, everybody was making sourdough, fermented grain. Again, it's really helpful to feed the good bacteria. Kombucha is another health drink that's taken off here. And bone broth, I don't know if you've heard about that, but again, soup, stews and casserole all help to feed the gut bacteria. But fiber and variety is hugely important also. So the more variety we have in our foods, the body produces short chain fatty acids, and that decreases inflammation. So the less inflammation, the more resilient, and the more we'll be able to fight and withstand infections and colds and flus and long-term disease. So really good foods for your immunity, things like ginger, garlic, turmeric. I have some examples here. ginger, like they're not the prettiest of looking things, but it's really powerful. So ginger into your smoothies, into your curries, really helpful. Turmeric is the same. Really, it's an Indian spice. You might see it as in spice form. This is in its root form. But turmeric really, really helpful for your immune system, and just sometimes warming and nourishing foods. And in terms of balancing your blood sugar that I mentioned, think about slow releasing carbohydrates. Carbohydrates that release energy slowly into your body, like oats or rye or spelt. And protein with your meals and snacks, whether it's plant protein or animal protein, has no effect on your blood sugar. So that's why it's good to include a bit of protein in your snacks. And then 2 portions of healthy fats per day is what we're recommended to take. So avocados, olive fish, nuts and seeds, extra virgin olive oil. And again, that would help to satisfy us and also has the health benefits of really promoting a healthy immune system. So think about eating the rainbow, and anywhere you can add a little bit of color, it's going to hugely benefit your body. Again, not just from the antioxidant content of all these lovely fruits and vegetables, but to help to feed your gut bacteria. The fiber, short chain fatty acids, decrease inflammation, help your immune system. So there's a daily antioxidant immunity shot that I recommend sometimes to my athletes because it really helps to recover well from sport, but hugely important, again, if you feel that you're getting regular colds and that, a little bit of ginger, a little bit of turmeric, a little bit of pepper to help the absorption. I actually have the example here. So just a shot of that really helps to promote a healthy immune system. And step 3, guys, is movement, okay? And I do hope that you'll take away the importance of mental well-being from this. But again, as we're talking about performance, movement, exercise, I wish I'd known this again, and this is why I love speaking about it and sharing with you at this age that you're at. If you do movement and exercise for your mental well-being, studies show that it keeps you going, and the practice and the habit will stand for longer rather than physical well-being. It'll always benefit your physical well-being, of course, but like think of the benefits. Like the body produces norepinephrine to help the brain's response to stress. It produces endorphins, happy hormones. You know, it's a wonderful sensation when you're working out or moving. And these are signs to your body that this is a good thing for you. Confidence, you know, when I'm talking to teenage girls, because I did my thesis on that area, the effects of training and competing during menstruation, really an area I'm really passionate about. When I'm talking to teenage girls, I love them to focus on what their body can do as opposed to like what it always looks like. And when you're involved in team sports and moving your body and enjoy the movement, it really helps you to have a positive self-image. In terms of productivity, I think it's amazing that the body actually creates new brain cells when you work out and exercise over a long period of time. It's called neurogenesis. I mean, focus, productivity, decision making, hugely impacted. And again, creativity. Exercise alters the white matter in our brain, promoting cognitive enhancement and creativity. So we're challenged right now. You're about to embark on your careers. You put demands on your body. The movement and the enjoyment of movement will have a hugely positive impact on your mental performance and a knock-on effect on your physical performance. I want to just highlight this particular area because in Ireland, especially, a lot of people are taking up new activities in lockdown just to help to cope. They're doing more than they ever did. And regardless of what level you're embarking on and what level of intensity, you have to adjust your diet somewhat. So again, people don't always get results if they work out and starting doing a lot of exercise and they're not modifying their diet accordingly. Often they might overeat, or if you're not fueling enough, it could affect your sleep negatively. So it's really important to think about fueling yourself for the level of intensity you're doing. So like a protein smoothie, a bit of granola and berries in the morning, a snack mid-morning, really important to balance your blood sugar levels and just, you know, stop your dip, that mid-morning dip. Low-fat plain live yogurt with a handful of nuts would be fantastic. Think about stopping in the middle of your day where possible and getting a nice protein-rich meal, whether it be an omelette and side salad, chicken salad or soup. And of course, there could be vegetarians and vegans here. So think about plant protein in there. And just if you're working out in the evening, just please remember to have a 1 hour pre-workout snack. You really need to make sure that your glycogen levels don't dip too much after exercise because that means you could have a propensity to overeat. So if you fuel correctly, it will help to curb the cravings afterwards. Because sometimes people tell me they're working out more than ever and they're just eating more and not getting the results they want. That's often because they're not fueling correctly. And then just think about afterwards a good workout. And in sports nutrition, it's called the power hour. That window, 1 hour after exercising, where you need to replace the glycogen in terms of carbohydrate, but also to make sure that you're getting at least 20 grams of protein to help to repair and build the muscle that has broken down through exercise. So really you have to think about exercise as a stressor, and you have to make sure if you're fueling correctly, it lessens the stress and helps to gain the impact that you want. So there's some examples there, like an egg-based snack after training or working out, a good smoothie with some protein in there, overnight oats, or a baked potato with some protein like beans and some cheddar cheese. So getting close to the end now in my part, but I want you to think about, it's always food first when it comes to wellness, of course. But because I get asked so much about supplements, I just said I would incorporate a couple of suggestions here, or ones to think about, because there's so many out there on the market. Vitamin D. Here in Ireland, and in particular, we're told to supplement all through the winter months because it's dark for so long. So 2,000 international units is what's recommended. And if you're depleted in vitamin D, guys, everything's a struggle. Your motivation is down. Again, your immune system is impaired, and you're just vulnerable. So if you want to get healthier and stronger, it'd be a shame to start embarking on a new fitness regime if you're depleted in vitamin D. And February here in Europe is when the stores are at their lowest. So again, it's a good time to maybe get tested if you can, visit your physician and get your vitamin D levels tested. A good quality multivitamin, and quality does matter. So again, watch that you're consuming a good quality multivitamin. Probiotic. So if you're not eating those foods that I talked about, or you may dislike them, think about a probiotic supplement that would kind of penetrate into your gut to really help with increase the healthy bacteria in there to promote resilience and immunity. And then omega-3, okay? I have some examples here. So omega-3, these are what I give my kids from time to time, just add it into smoothie. They don't even notice it, but some of them don't like fish. So here's a little bit of a help there. And then supplements, people often don't like capsules, so they can get it in spray form. This is vitamin D in a spray form. It's got 3,000 IUs. And again, I use it intermittently throughout the day, not throughout the day, but at different members of my family when they need it. So a good rule of thumb when it comes to supplements as well is 3 months on, 1 month off. We don't need to be generally on supplements all year round. So just a boost and then a break, and then go back on it if you feel you need it. So there's a smoothie with benefits if you want to make note of that. And again, smoothies sometimes can have, all fruit, which is fructose. I mean, fruit is good, of course, vitamins and minerals, but elevates our blood sugar levels. So it might sustain us as long as we want it to, and often it can promote cravings. So if you get a good, some portion of milk in there, milk of your choice, some live yogurt, some milled seeds, banana and carbohydrates, handful of frozen berries. Again, another example here. I'll have this as my own recovery snack after the presentation today. And a scoop of plant protein or peanut butter for that protein source. So something like that, and that combination is going to keep you fuller for longer and won't have a negative effect on your blood sugars. So your body, your job. And I would love if this presentation in some shape or form would help you to tune into yourself. Where are you on your scale? Are you like less than 5 right now? And if you are, don't try and think about jumping to 9 all of a sudden. Even any small gain will have a positive impact and then help you to lead on to better nutritional choices. Start with sleep, always sleep. Sleep solves everything in my life. Know what's good for you. Think about your gut health and the impact it's having on your mental well-being. Protect your immune system. Balance your blood sugars. Move for your mind, not just for the physical benefits. Supplement wisely and choose well. And above all, enjoy the process. This is a process that never ends. Nobody I know is perfect health. Everybody's working in some area of their lives, no matter what. Even the most elite athletes are, and they wouldn't be in it and wouldn't be enjoying their sport if they weren't able to work on different things that help them to improve. So just be mindful, it's all a process. But the great thing about this is that your body will always benefit. And as a knock-on effect, your performance will benefit. And it'll be a great tool for you to have going forward in your future, and will not only benefit you, but everybody in your life. So Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy that, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions in relation to any of the topics I discussed.
Thank you very much for that, Sinead. It was not only informative, but engaging just in terms of how you showed some of the examples of what you were talking about, talked about the importance of movement and nutrition around movement. You know, as obviously, as you know, I am certainly not an elite athlete. And I appreciated your smoothie there prepared for after this talk, because that's something also that I never think about. And as somebody who professionally, I'm speaking all the time, whether it's to students, to organizations or meetings, you know, thinking about that even as a physical activity, I think is really important. So I'd like to now warmly invite Greg Minson to join our conversation. As I said before, Greg, as the COO of real estate at Goldman Sachs, is going to talk today now with Sinead about firsthand his experience with this particular topic. And he's going to share his story, as well as talk about how to bring this into these fast-paced, high-stress, high-powered corporate situations. And I know, Sinead, for example, you've given talks like this at the likes of Google and other establishments. So I'm really excited as we transition to this part to hear Greg's perspective and see how, you know, what you can offer in terms of what he's sharing. With that, Greg, I turn it over to you.
Sinead, I was motivated to go downstairs and jump on the Peloton as you were speaking. But a lot of what you said really resonated with me. You know, I've been on my own wellness journey for the last, 10 or 15 years. And I echo what you said about your own journey. I do wish it started when I was 20, 21, 22, instead of 30 or 32, whenever I started, which was very much kind of on the back of a kind of a health crisis. Um, but what I thought I'd do is give you a little bit of background of my day, my pace, and why I think health and wellness is so important to me. As Megan said, I'm the CEO of our real estate business within Goldman Sachs. It's a global role. It's very high paced or fast paced. It starts at 6 a.m. with phone calls to Tokyo and Hong Kong and Beijing, and it goes through to kind of 9 or 10 o'clock, with phone calls to New York and kind of the West Coast of the United States. And there's a lot of stuff in between, and it's not just being the COO. I sit on a number of different committees within the firm. I'm a mentor to a few people within the firm. I'm a mentor to a few people outside the firm. I sit on the advisory boards at Fordham University, both in New York and in London, as well as for my high school. I sit on a number of other external boards as well. I'm a husband, a father, a rugby coach, a friend. I like to have some free time to myself. So there's a lot going on in my life. And it's actually how I really enjoy living my life. I like living my life to the fullest, but it also means I need to be on my A game, and I can't afford, to be, quite frankly, anything but my best as much as I possibly can. And to be my best, you need to be focused. You need to be, calm under pressure. You need to have stamina. You need to. Sounds like an athlete in many respects, and I'm very far away from being an athlete. I wish I was a professional athlete. But when you think about all those things I said and the attributes you kind of need to be on your A game, it is kind of sounds like you're describing an athlete, and I think that's how we all need to treat ourselves in order to be successful. And what's kind of funny and interesting within Goldman, at least, we tend to call our star performers athletes. We'll say, oh, so and so, he or she is a great athlete. And so I think this whole concept of performance in the professional world is very analogous to the type of things you would expect an athlete to be able to do. And I'm methodical about my approach, and I kind of have to be. And that was born after a bit of a health scare I had probably about 10 or 12 years ago, where I just pretty much exhausted, and I was out of work for a few months, and this was just when my second child was born and when I was starting a new job. And being sick is never convenient, but certainly when it happened to me, it really was very inconvenient, to say the least. And it really, kind of woke me up to the fact that I can't do it all, and not take care of myself at the same time. And so, I did a lot of self-reflection. I got a coach, and we really tried to change, you know, my habits as opposed to thinking about things in, kind of like crash diets or sort of sprints. Um, and what I really focused on initially, and I still focused on today, quite methodically, is really four key areas. And they'll sound very similar. You'll think I just was copying what Sinead wrote down, but a lot of what she's, like I said, a lot of what she said really resonated with me. And first of all, sleep for me is like non non-negotiable. I very religiously try to get at least 7, sometimes 8 hours sleep. Which means when I'm done with my phone calls, I have a small time to recharge. Probably not as long as Sinead would want me to, but I'm pretty much in bed, and there's really there's no kind of working around that. But for me, if I don't get a good night's sleep, I can function for a couple of days. Quite frankly, I can function for probably longer than a couple of days, but my health will deteriorate, and that's something I want to avoid. So for me, sleep is one of the things I almost never compromise on. The next thing for me is nutrition. Obviously, it's the fuel that keeps you going, but also there's rhyme or reason in terms of how I think about nutrition. I tend to have very big breakfasts, lots of protein. Lunches are a little bit smaller, more kind of balanced with fruits and vegetables and protein. And then dinner for me is pretty small. I have a very small dinner, just enough to kind of fill me up. And so I'm not picking at things at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, but it's a very small meal for me most of the time. And Sunday through Thursday, there's no booze. I can't afford to really drink. It really impacts how I sleep, back to the sleep point, and really impacts on me the next day. And unfortunately, it doesn't matter if it's like 1 pint or 5 pints or 6 pints. It kind of has a very similar impact on me, unfortunately, from a sleep perspective. So I'm very, Sunday through Thursday, again, it's booze is pretty much out of the picture for me. Exercise, hugely important, not only physically very important, but for me it's a mental release. It's how I really work off stress. And I notice if I don't work out, I feel it. And it's not the physical kind of deficit from not working out, but it's really the mental. So for me, working out to me is sort of something I really need to do. I can certainly go a day without it, and I do go a day without it, or even 2 days without it sometimes. But if I go any longer than that, I really start feeling kind of the impact. And then last but not least, and Sinead picked up on this as well, but like recharging. So as fast paced as my day is, I don't go from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. like as a sprint. I have moments in time where I take a step back. I might go for a walk. Now that I'm working from home, I may go walk around the block. If I'm in the office, I tend to walk around the floor, and I tend to talk to people. I try to get a cup of coffee or do something, not past lunchtime. Don't worry about it, Sinead, but I might get a cup of coffee or a drink. But I try to find breaks in my day, so that I can kind of recharge. And even when I'm home, I'll there's a couch behind me. Sometimes I lie down and even take a 5 or 10 minute nap. So, I think recharging is super important. Nobody can really focus, for, in my case, 14 hours, from start to finish without finding some time to, recharge and connect with people who are outside your, your circle at that time. Like for me, it's very important to talk to my wife, talk to my kids, talk to some friends, something that breaks that circle of kind of work and kind of stress and things like that. So recharging is really important. Again, Sinead talked about this and touched upon this. Like nobody is perfect. I'm not perfect. I'll have moments where and quite frequently, I can't do all those 4 things every single day. And so what I really try to do, is do at least 2 out of those 4 things, at least, once a day, sleep being one of them. So that leaves, really a few, a couple of those other levers to pull that will get me to that 2 out of 4. I'll often try to push for 3 out of 4. That would be my ideal. And it's not too frequent where I get 4 out of 4. I think those days are few and far between, but I don't let that be the metric of my success. I think we're all very busy, and we can't always go to the gym every day. We can't always get the best night's sleep, but if I do 2 or 3 out of the 4 things I mentioned every day, I think that sets me up to be kind of the best that I need to be in order to kind of lead the life that I want to lead. Just in closing, because I know we want to go to Q&A, but I don't think I would be in the position I am unless I've adopted this approach, 12 years ago when I had that, that little wake up call that I described. It has really changed, how I manage my life. It's really, I think, given me the energy and the focus to be successful in the office, and also to be, a good husband and father at home. It's given me the energy and stamina to have the life I want to lead and make me happy. And I don't think I would be able to do that if I hadn't really changed, how I approached, my health and my wellness. So, I'm almost very thankful it happened to me, because without it happening, I don't think I would be where I am today. So I'm very, perversely happy that I went through that moment and was able to figure out, a path forward. So with that, I'm happy to pause, answer any questions people may have. But I want to thank Megan for asking me to speak, and Sinead for your presentation, because I think even after saying what I just mentioned, I still learned a bunch of things from your presentation, including I love your formula, that 10-3-2-1. I think that's great, and something that I'm going to try to incorporate into my day as well.
Thank you, Greg, for that. And to continue the Q&A part, we're grateful to have your experience and to add on to what Sinead's been speaking about. I'd like to now welcome our graduate students, Liz and Emmy, to join us. Liz is a second-year full-time MBA student at Gabelli who has a concentration in marketing and entrepreneurship. And she's worked in the fashion industry as well as skincare and media. She's currently interning at Yotpo, which is an e-commerce marketing platform. So she has to keep up with the lightning pace of the world of technology and tech industry, how it changes. And through all that, she said she's been focusing on carving out moments for her to care for her mind and her body through yoga, long walks with her dog, Banana, which is a great name. Sinead, you'll probably resonate, seeing it has a nutrition reference there for you. And she says she cooks delicious foods. And Emmy is one of our MS in Media Management students. She coincidentally also has her Bachelor of Science in Global Business from Gabelli. So she's back with us again. She's currently a member of our Gabelli Centennial Working Committee. Gabelli Centennial was in 2020, so she's been instrumental in helping coordinate events for that, and is a peer advisor. And what Emmy was speaking to me about in preparation for today was the idea that, for all of us, and herself in particular, experiencing this last year at home during the pandemic, she's really been focusing on more self-care and determined to improve her healthy sleep habits. So again, Sinead, something, your very first topic that came up is so important and is on the forefront of people's minds. So she's looking forward to discussing that today. So I'd like to welcome both Liz and Emmy. I'm going to turn it over to them. I know we've technically got about 10 minutes left in our session. We do have a lot of questions that came in. So Greg and Sinead, I know you said previously you can stay a few more minutes. We'll probably try to go about 5 minutes over, just so that we can accommodate as many questions. Although to our audience, we certainly understand if you have a hard stop, feel free to leave our session. We will be recording and posting all of these sessions so you can find it online. But with that, let me turn it over to you, Liz, to kick off our Q&A here with our speakers today.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Dr. Jerry Grogan, for organizing this and for inviting Emmy and myself to participate. It's really exciting. And I want to start by saying, again, thank you, Sinead and Greg, for being here. And I think so much of what you said resonated with me. Greg, I also had sort of like a health scare, if you will, when I was an undergraduate. I was going through a lot of gut health issues, and it ended up causing some other like anxiety and depression. And so I got to start my health journey when I was quite young, like early 20s. And so I've made a lot of changes, but as Dr. Jerry Grogan mentioned, I'm now still a student, technically a full-time student, but also a member of the workforce in tech. So I have a lot going on, and I know the same can be said for Emmy and I'm sure everyone else on this call. And so I wanted to kick it off by asking both of you if you could maybe offer some advice on setting healthy boundaries for ourselves, especially working from home. Like, it's really hard to disconnect. You know, there's always another thing that we could do or another project that we could make headway on. So I'm wondering what advice, practical or like even mindset wise, either of you would have on setting those boundaries.
Sinead, do you want to kick off?
Yeah. Thank you, Liz, and thank you for sharing your health journey too. It's so insightful and helpful to everybody when people do that. One thing I've learned from my athletes that I work with is their ability to say no. This is one of the things that struck me, because personally, my dad was an athlete, my sister was an athlete, you know, played competitively here in Ireland, but I wasn't. So I wanted to get to know, the traits and how they were engaging themselves. And when I was observing them to begin with, I always noticed that if they were asked something that they didn't want to have, you know, like some people are saying, would you like some cake? Elite athletes, they just say no. Now, that not to mean that they're never going to have cake or whatever, but they just no. Whereas then I'd observe someone who wouldn't be an athlete as such. They might go, oh God, I shouldn't, maybe I won't, oh God, you know, and then go on, you will, in Ireland anyway, go on, you will. And then they go, okay, I will. So I think what I've learned from my athletes that way is that you have to figure out what it is you want to achieve. And I loved when Greg said the non-negotiables, and the other word, no compromise. So his thing there is sleep, and it's the same with myself. You have to know the habits, we'll say, that have impact. So is it sleep? Is it movement? And then you protect yourself, and to make sure that those 2, 3, 4 things happen, because you know you're more vulnerable if you don't do them. And also just to make sure, you know, in another kind of way, this, and I've been having conversations with friends about this, in another way we can actually hide a lot in COVID. You know, if we want to protect ourselves, go away, do a yoga class, you know, not see as many people, it's actually a little bit more possible now. So it's kind of more conducive to the introvert side of ourselves if we want to. So perhaps if we're feeling depleted, really, there is a little bit of a facility there to make sure that we gain energy just by hiding away a little bit for a while. And of course, if we're hiding away too much, we might need to get out and meet people or do something sociable with the people we love. But I think the key word there that Greg used that I love is that non-negotiable, and figure out what it is that really has an impact on you, and just, I suppose, continue with the operate of being kind to yourself. So get good at saying no. Yeah,
I mean, I was smiling because that resonates with me. And look, in the beginning of COVID, I didn't say no very well, and I started to feel I'm able to read my body better now than I did 10 or 15 years ago, and I noticed some negative feedback, you know, digestion and headaches, and I was irritable, and so, you know, I think that feedback reminded me that I needed to find more discipline and, you know, how I structured my day, and found the space I needed to do some of the things I mentioned before. I think you know, touching on a little bit what Sinead said as well, and just like twist, and maybe, you know, being what's the word I'm looking for? You got to be specific. Like, I think people say I want to be healthy, or I want to be disciplined, and it's like, that is, you can drive a Mack truck through that comment. So it's like Sinead brought up a couple of questions or a couple of examples, like, you know, you want to be disciplined about what? Is it sleep? Is it alcohol? Is it dessert? You can't be disciplined with everything in life. All right. And so figuring out, like, what are the 2 or 3 things that are most impactful to you, and really honing in on those 2 or 3 things, and being disciplined about them, I think is really important. I think, people will fail if they're not very specific with what they mean by, being healthy, or being, kind of, having a, a wellness sort of approach to life. I mean, that's just way too amorphous. So I think specificity is really, really important as well.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Sinead, you mentioned that wellness means being able to perform your daily tasks with enthusiasm and energy. And you also just mentioned that although Zoom does provide us that moment to escape a little bit, we are suffering from a sense of Zoom fatigue. So how would you say that we can balance that sense of energy and being invested in our work when we're doing most of it on a camera?
Yeah, Emmy, thank you. And I'm still figuring that out myself, to be honest, because I am doing more than I've ever done. And this is a new challenge for me to be on so much. But I think it's grounding. I think if you can go by the sea, we're fortunate here in Galway to live by the sea. I think nature is the quickest answer, to be honest. Fresh air, sunshine, grass, your pet, a hug by the people you can do instantly takes you out of your brain and into your body. And even breath work. If you want to look up Dr. Andrew Weil, Emmy, it's a breath work, the 4-7-8 breath work. And you breathe in for 4, hold your breath to 7, and release to the count of 8. And you do that 4 times. And that is a way of getting away from your sympathetic nervous system to your parasympathetic nervous system that I spoke about. So it's really, like, I suppose, disconnecting from your active brain into your body. But nature, I think, is the absolute antithesis of being online. So if you can get to nature at any point in the day, I think it's an immediate switch, the quickest.
Yeah, I know that for me personally, when I spend 5 minutes outside after being on a long Zoom call, I immediately feel a sense of energy just being restored. So thank you for that.
Yeah, most welcome.
I totally agree. By the way, I moved to the Hudson River, so I'm able to get outside, and it's not as nice as the sea in Galway, but it does the trick.
It's the 5 senses, your smell, your touch, getting in touch with your 5 senses, I think, is the opposite to being connected and online.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to saying no. Like I've started saying no, and I've started taking phone calls like the old-fashioned way, and walking. And so I'll go outside and I'll take phone calls. And I think you need to disconnect from Zoom, and as much as you can, quite frankly, because it forces you to sit, and it's not good for you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to shift gears a little bit to something that came up in the chat, and that also I was curious about. I've recently been learning a lot about intuitive eating, and someone in the chat mentioned, how do we avoid a food coma? So Sinead, I was wondering if you could talk maybe a bit about what are your thoughts on intuitive eating, or other types of diets or approaches to eating, and how can we better access our hunger and fullness cues?
Really good question. Thank you. Intuitive eating, I think, would probably be the best way of, getting in touch with what your body needs. I suppose that's essentially what it is. I know there's a big movement, and more people are learning about that. I suppose the precursors that I talked about, like your sleep and your movement and your self-care, kind of automatically helps you to crave the right types of food. So I don't think any diet, like people ask me about intermittent fasting as well, or the keto diet or these type of things. I think that you need to be at a high level of wellness to embark on any of them. So if you're 3 out of 10 and you're depleted, and all of a sudden you're intermittent fasting and you're trying to go 18 hours without food or whatever it is, that's going to have a detrimental impact. And it really has been shown to have a negative impact on people who don't have a good relationship with food. So I would work on the habits of gaining energy, being up at a high level on the scale, maybe 7 or 8, and then you can play around. And that actually is what you do at around 7 or 8. You go, maybe I'll try this. No, that doesn't work for me. Maybe I'll try this. Ooh, this makes me feel good. So you can't gauge that if you're in depletion mode. So I'd work on the habits to build energy, and then you can play around. And that's exactly what I do. I've tried them all, to be honest, at a high level of nourishment, I suppose, and to see how it impacts on me. But I'd go back to the what you're striving for. If you're embarking on something new and it makes you feel low in energy or moody or upset or affects your sleep, it's not working for you. So again, as Greg said, tune into you, tune into how your body, what's it saying to you as a result of these different things. So I wouldn't actually say no to everything, but I would just say closely watch how your body is responding to anything you embark on, and do it from a place of nourishment as opposed to depletion. Does that make sense?
Yes, it absolutely does. And the only other thing I would say, since I have personal experience with like not feeling good and not having good gut health, is like if you are experiencing a lot of gut issues, my issue was celiac. So if you need to see a doctor, you certainly should. And I then ended up having to give myself a lot of space to heal before I could do any of the experimentation that you mentioned, Sinead. So it's important to give yourself that space as well.
Brilliant. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for that, Liz. Yeah.
And bringing it back to the power and importance of sleep, recently the idea of revenge bedtime procrastination has become quite popular on social media. And so this phenomenon is where people stay up later in order to feel a sense of control over the night because they didn't feel like they had a sense of control over their day. And this is definitely something that I've been experiencing. I'm staying up later during the pandemic, and then the next day I feel much more tired than I'd like to. So I would just like some, maybe some ideas or some tips for those who really do have trouble turning off or just shutting down their computer, putting away their phone and saying, it's time to go to bed.
I'll quickly say, sleep is where I use my discipline. I don't use sleep for food, really. I use it for discipline. So, and again, at nighttime, our discipline is at our lowest due to the fatigue of the day. So it's just a case of, as a mother, and myself and Megan, Megan and I have actually talked about this, it's the absolute favorite place for us mothers to be is 12 o'clock at night when everything is quiet. I would love to stay up till 2 a.m. reading, watching, listening to music, cooking. I would love it. There's no disturbances, but I can't. And I've just figured it out. I can't. I've tried to, again, I haven't been perfect in COVID either. I have stayed up, but even as a time, my teenage son is coming into me at nighttime. He's staying up later. He's coming into me bedtime at nighttime, and we're having a good discussion. And I love it, and he's sharing stuff with me, but I recently had to cut it out. I had to try and maybe transfer it to the daytime a little bit because it was affecting my sleep. So it's hard. It's not easy. I just wanted to say that. Sometimes, good health is earned, and you have to make the hard decisions. And again, it goes back to knowing what works for you. And if I'm not getting good to sleep, I'm not good to anybody. I'm not a good giver. I'm not a good carer. I'm not really as nice as I could be. So it's a case of discipline, and it's shut down, but you'll never regret it the next day. So to me, I suppose the quick answer is discipline, pure and simple. And we'd all love to be staying up later, really. I don't really know anybody who wouldn't like that time at nighttime. So it's just a case of #do it.
Yeah, I definitely do like the peaceful sense at nighttime. I feel like I do have some control over that time and it's very private. But I also have started to write lists, and just crossing off the things that I'm getting done during the day has seemed to help me. But I'm still not going to bed as early as I'd like. So I think I need to just be a little bit more determined about that.
And Emmy, do you have time for yourself in the morning? Because that's for me what I try and do. Like if I don't, I equate it to getting more time in the morning. So if I go to bed earlier, I get up earlier, and that means I have that peace in the morning. So I'm sea swimming here in the Atlantic Ocean at the moment, and that's helpful. Definitely gets me out of my head. So I think it's transferable to the morning time and that's lovely to be up with the sunrise.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not much of a morning person, but I'd like to be. So it's just being able to get to bed earlier the night before and then starting the day fresh. But it's something I definitely have to work on.
You have loads of time. You've loads of time to get ready for that and to practice that. Don't worry. But yeah, I think the ultimate goal is being a morning person if you can manage it, because it has too many knock-on positives.
If we have time, I just wanted to ask one last question that I did also see in the chat, which is if we do embark on this journey, make these changes, when can we expect to see results? Someone was asking about the neurogenesis timeline. Sinead, I don't know what insights you have on that, but people are curious.
actually, sorry, I don't want to be taken over now from Greg or anything. But neurogenesis actually, it's longer than just a quick hit. So we have the endorphins for immediate, but the neurogenesis actually takes about 6 months. So it's consistent good habits of exercise that has the positive effects on the neurogenesis and creating new brain cells. So it's not immediate, but the endorphins are, but the neurogenesis takes slightly longer. So it's the habit of exercise is where the benefit is.
Thank you for that. And yes, this has been a very engaging conversation. I can see the questions still continue to come in. I think one last question that would be good for us to end on for Sinead or Greg to contribute. You know, some of our questions have been coming in about what about accessibility, or if it's challenging to get to nature where you live, or you know, the cost sometimes of eating healthy. How can you respond to some of those lines of inquiry about, you know, if you feel that healthy eating is outside of maybe your financial planning, or you're feeling like it's challenging to get to nature, any ideas or thoughts that you can share for people to somehow more find it accessible to achieve some of these things we're talking about today?
I'll let Sinead talk about the nutritional side, because that is a tough one. It's not cheap eating well sometimes. I think nature, for me, by the way, nature to me is more of a concept as opposed to like literal nature. I mean, I live in the city center. I live in London, so it's not like I'm doing long walks in the woods. But for me, just the idea of getting out and getting into a place that I enjoy. You know, it could be a city park. It could be, you know, walking down, you know, the strip of stores. It could be, you know, window shopping or whatever. It's just the idea of getting out of the house, getting moving, getting some fresh air, having a different you know, perspective on things by, you know, just by moving, I think is what, you know, I tend to kind of rope, you know, or sort of group the whole concept of nature. And, you know, I do have the opportunities on the weekends to jump in the car and go a little further afield and get in the countryside, and we have a dog and go for nice long walks, but that's kind of once a week, you know. So, you know, for me, it's more about just enjoying my surroundings and, you know, doing things outside that relax me, even though they're kind of city center type things.
A grounding mat. I just had to get it in my office there. If you're not accessible to nature or whatever, there's these grounding mats I got on Amazon. So when I'm, again, on the computer for a long length of time, you plug it in and it kind of earths you. So it has that kind of same effect as nature in your, not of course as good, but it does ground you and earth you. Positive ions that, you know, promote wellness. I think it was €15 on Amazon. If that's one method you could use. People sleep on them as well to help with good sleep and to repair and heal the body. Frozen vegetables, guys, it doesn't have to be expensive. And please, I'd love to break down the perception that being healthy and needs to be expensive. Like beans and lentils, they're really cheap. Like brown rice is good. As I said, frozen vegetables. If you can visit your local market, I don't know where people are living, but like local markets, seasonal foods, the cheaper, they're healthier. It's all those extra stuff, like, you know, the new buzz like spirulina, or, you know, I don't know, acai bowls or whatever, like the LA side of things, where it's like, you know, you're not healthy unless you're having like a, I don't know, $20 juice or smoothie. It's the stuff that grows locally if you can manage it, and just think about, I suppose, budgeting as well, and meal planning. That helps as well in terms of the monetary side of things, avoiding waste. And then the grains can be really, you know, I suppose, inexpensive and provide some protein, you know, like quinoa grains, again, as I said, the brown rice, the frozen vegetables, a little bit of tinned food, actually not that bad at all. Tinned fish is actually quite okay sometimes, not so much the larger fish, but the smaller fish like sardines can be okay, really healthy fats in there. So I totally understand that people are on a budget, especially students, but as all, sometimes at different stages of our lives. So yeah, just try and think of being shopping local, go to the markets, frozen vegetables, perfectly fine. You don't have to be always eating red meat. Meats can be expensive. And just watch that it's not always the quality, you know, it's not all these buzz new supplements that are the answer. It often goes back to sleep, inexpensive, movement free, and just, I suppose, being kind to yourself. Costs nothing, and kind to others while you're at it.
Thank you. Yeah, those are excellent suggestions and recommendations for how to consider alternative ways or affordable ways or ways to get out to nature. So I'd like to really thank you, Sinead, for your time today, and Greg for joining us and giving your insights, as well as Liz and Emmy. This has been an excellent conversation and incorporating all of the comments and queries that came in from our audience. I'd also like to thank Dean Rapiccioli and Andrea Manillo, our chairman of the Fordham London Advisory Board, as well as our Gabelli IT and communications team for all their continued support of the speaker series, because it wouldn't happen each week without any one of them. And to you, our valued attendees, thank you once again for joining us. Please watch for an emailed survey from us later today to provide us feedback so that we can learn how to improve for future events. And as well as that, you can be registering for our future events at our website. And we look forward to speaking with you next week when we'll be hearing from Ginger Zymes, who's a writer, editor, poet, translator, lecturer, and advisor. She's going to be speaking about shaping and reshaping our post-pandemic world, and we'll be referencing classically contemporary ideologies to help us as we reconnect the dots between the arts, the sciences, and the business worlds, as they cannot exist without each other. Until then, be well.